Thank you very much, Cam. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Flora Chong, the Vice Chair of Toronto Alpha, and myself are very pleased to be here this evening, joining together to tell you about the very dark history in humankind. Toronto Alpha was established in 1997. It was established by a group of volunteers from Hong Kong who grew up in Hong Kong, came to Canada to study, and then worked in Canada for the subsequent 10, 15, or 20 years. As young people growing up in Hong Kong, we did not even have a chance to learn about the history of World War II in Asia. After we arrived in Canada, some of us in the States, we gradually learned about the Holocaust that occurred in Europe. Like many people in the West, we are sympathetic, we are touched by the history of how Jewish people got slaughtered during the Nazi period of the European War. So we went to synagogues to observe the Holocaust memorials. We were touched, we cried together. We want to make sure the world would not forget what had happened in Europe. Not until we learn about our own history. In the 1980s and the 1990s. So our knowledge of World War II in Asia actually did not come from Hong Kong. We learned about it in Canada. While the European War was very well known and taught, and rightfully so, in schools across the land here in the West, the Asian Holocaust was very little known in the West. The 20 to 30 million people who perished during the war in Asia, we are asking ourselves, are they worth anything less? So why the West treated the two wars so differently? And it's when we started to organize effort. Alongside with our effort to promote Jewish Holocaust, we also want to promote the knowledge of World War II in Asia. In the beginning, when we formed, we have one very distinct objective, and that is we have to get justice for victims of World War II in Asia. We have to ask Japan to acknowledge the facts of history, make an official, proper, genuine apology, and pay compensation to the victims. As we grew, as we learned more about the war, our direction changed a little bit. Not that compensation and apology not important. They're very important, but they are not sufficient. The mission of Toronto Alpha and Edmonton Alpha are to preserve and learn the facts of this history so that reconciliation could take place, so that peace could prevail, and in that order. That's why the most important objective in our work is education. Educating young people in North America, in Europe, in Australia, in the West, and also in Asia as well. Very importantly, we recognize that only Japanese nationals could do something within Japan to turn around the mentality, to turn around the education system, which has not given Japanese young people about what had happened during World War II in Asia. Very often this chapter of history has been whitewashed. In Japan, the war was glorified. The invasion was not regarded as such. And many young people in Japan really knew very little about what had happened during that period of time. And that is why we are here today. We have a lot of learned people, scholars, researchers, and victims of the war who come all the way from Asia to this part of the country, thousands and thousands of miles away, to let you know, to let our educators know about the facts of history so that we could pass it to your students and the students in Toronto and beyond. Toronto Alpha is organizing our conference a week later, and New Jersey is organizing a conference a week after Toronto Alpha, so that we share resources, so that the educators, the scholars, researchers, and victims who come all the way to North America, they could come here to Edmonton, to Toronto, and to New Jersey, so that in one stroke, we could educate 500 to 600 educators all together. And we're organizing something for students as well. The reason why we organize the conference is very simple. We have been taking teachers and educators to China and Korea for the last several years. The first year, in 2004, there were over 200 women victims who were forced to be sex slaves during World War II. There were only about 200 people left. And in 2008, only about 30 left to tell the story. And the way it went, we thought that in a few years' time, we would not have any survivors to tell their stories. And that is why we brought them over here so that more people have the opportunity to learn from them, to listen to them, and to also observe the courage that they have. In the Eastern culture in Korea and China, women have not been able to speak freely because of the cultural myth and a lot of cultural inhibition. And this group of women, elderly women, who were courageous enough to rise up and say, I'm one of them, I want to tell the world, I want you to know. And we told them, yes, we are here to spread your knowledge so that your voice would not be extinguished. So I want to thank you for your presence here today, and I want to thank all the volunteers and people in Edmonton. You're so very wonderful, and they have done a great job. I want to thank them on behalf of all the educators and on behalf of Toronto Alpha and everyone who love peace in the world. Thank you very much.